After spending some time with our favorite synthetic detective, Nick Valentine opens up and tells us a bit more about himself. Yes, he's a synth, but no, he's not made from DNA and biological material like all those advanced third-gen synths. No, he is made from plastic and metal and other machine parts.
My memories, my personality, they're all lifted from some cop who volunteered for an experiment back before the war. They scanned his brain and copied it onto the hardware that runs between my ears.
Wait, the original Nick was from my time?
Sure was. For as long as I can remember, I've been getting these, flashes. Memories of places I've never been. Things I've never seen. Memories of Nicks.
What kind of memories?
Everything. Old cases. Old loves. I found myself running background on cases only to realize everyone involved's been dead for 200 years. Don't get me wrong, I know I'm in Nick's debt. These memories, they've kept me alive. Nick was a hell of a cop. A guy with good instincts and a good heart.
These memories of the original Nick Valentine are haunting the current Nick Valentine. After a while, he approaches you for help with a problem that's been nagging at his mind.
You know, there is this chunk of Nick Valentine history I've been hoping to put a bow on for a while now. I could use a hand if you're willing to take a crack at it.
What kind of history are we talking here?
Well, this one's straight out of the archives. Once upon a time, in the land of Boston, there lived a king of organized crime, Eddie Winter. He was a bad man who did a lot of bad things, hurt a lot of innocent people. But he knew the end was coming, so he sealed himself inside a personal shelter, located underneath a sub-shop he used as a headquarters.
An evil king in a sub-shop. Does a meatball monster show up at some point?
Yeah, from what I've heard, the pastrami golem is the one you really have to watch out for. Anyway, if you're done being a wise ass, the story gets even more twisted. The arrogant bastard wanted to cheat death, live forever, so he could come out of that shelter someday into this brave new world. Sound familiar? Only Eddie didn't want to be a frozen banana. No cryo sleep for him, no. He invested his money in some sick, crazy radiation experiment.
Watch who you're calling frozen banana, pal.
Get over yourself. It ain't always about you. Now listen to the important part. Eddie Winter went and turned himself into a ghoul. 200 years before it was fashionable. Hell, he was probably the first one. And I'm convinced that he's still locked inside that shelter. Safe and sound. Ready to come out and begin his evil reign all over again. I'm gonna find him and kill him, so that never happens. You in?
I don't get it, Nick. Why kill Eddie Winter, even if he is still alive? This sounds like some kind of vendetta.
I've got memories of a girl. My girl. They're not really my memories, I know that. They're Nick's. But the girl, she was real. She was beautiful and innocent, and Winter killed her. Now he's got to pay the price.
I don't know, Nick. It sounds a bit like cold-blooded murder.
Who says it ain't? But I don't have to be human to know that sometimes the only way to end evil is to kill it.
Now, if you think it's murder to kill Eddie Winter, you can say no.
You want to murder this guy, Nick? I can't be party to that.
Fine, but I hope you change your mind. This Eddie Winter, he was barely human back then. God knows what he is now.
But to maximize affinity with Nick Valentine, we have to say yes.
All right, Nick. Let's get the bad guy.
Good. Now, I know where Winter's vault is, but the door is sealed with a complex numerical code. Lucky for us, Winter's arrogance knew no bounds. Back in the day, he recorded 10 holotapes, incriminating different criminal associates. On each one, he hit a single number. We find all of those holotapes, we get all the numbers. We get all the numbers, we get the code. And then we get Winter. I've been putting together a file on this one for a while now. There's a pair of holotapes in here worth listening to, including one of Winter's that I managed to snatch from the Cambridge police evidence lockup before getting swarmed by ferals. My gut tells me the Boston police evidence terminals are the key to cracking this one. It's probably worth paying a visit to any of the departments you might have stumbled across.
Nick gives us a case file which summarizes everything he already told us in his dialogue. He gives us the location of Eddie's bunker, Andrew's station, beneath the Spucky's sub shop that he owns, and it gives us a few specific places where to start our investigation: the Cambridge Police Station and the BADTFL HQ, Bureau of Alcohol, Drugs, Tobacco, Firearms, and Lasers. He also gives us 2 holotapes. One is a welcome holotape that the original Nick Valentine's police captain gave him when he first signed on to the Eddie Winter case.
Detective Valentine, Captain Widmark here. I'd just like to reiterate how excited we here at the Boston Police Department are that you'll be joining our investigation. Commissioner Turner has already regaled me with the tales of your adventures in Chicago. As you know, Edward L. Eddie Winter has been a pox on this beautiful city for nearly 2 decades. Extortion, murder, racketeering, kidnapping, name a crime he's committed. The epitome of a cold-blooded, brilliant, slippery crime boss. Fortunately for us, over the years, Winter has also developed that most self-destructive of character traits, supreme arrogance. Starting a little over a year ago, Winter stopped coding his correspondences and began communicating entirely via unencrypted holotape. Each one addressed the subject in question and very clearly signed off by Winter himself. He's obviously mocking the authorities. He knows we're monitoring his communications. He doesn't care. Winter thinks he's untouchable. He's wrong. This is when the game changes. Those holotapes are the key to building a case against Eddie Winter, and they're what this task force will focus on. His crimes, his words. Total self-incrimination. Get those holotapes, and we get Winter.
The captain thinks that Eddie Winter is no longer encoding his holotapes due to arrogance. He's so much better than the police. They're all dunces. He's the smart one. We find out later that that's not actually the case. But first, let's hear the man in his own words. Let's listen to the first Eddie Winter holotape that Nick Valentine gave us.
Message to Johnny Montrano. Johnny, Johnny, Johnny. You fat, lazy piece of shit. I knew this arrangement was too good to be true. Let's join forces with the North End, huh? Bury the hatchet, work mutually against a common enemy? Well, you put the nail in that coffin, huh, boyo? What did you have to do, Johnny, huh? What was your job? Sit in your car, on the corner. Keep your eyes open. If you see a uniform, you get out. Walk down the street, knock on the door, and let the fellas know there's trouble coming. Easy as pie, right? I could have got a 9-year-old from the projects to do it, but no. In the interest of Irish-Italian relations, I give the job to you. So what happens? Nothing. Nothing happens. You sit on your fat ass dribbling cannoli cream onto your third chin. You watch. You watch the uniform blow months of planning, all in 2 minutes. Congratulations, Johnny. You got me. You and your pal sure put the screws to old Eddie Winter. You should tell this funny story to your little girl when you tuck her in at night. In that corner bedroom, upstairs, pink wallpaper, little house on Prince Street. Yeah. Eddie Winter, signing off.
Johnny Montrano. Remember that name? It pops up 2 more times in these holotapes. What happened here is that Eddie Winter is an Irish crime boss in charge of his own group of Irish criminals who worked out of South Boston. But there's an Italian crime boss as well. He mainly operates in the north. We learn more about this later, but Eddie Winter tried to ease tensions between the north and south crime bosses in Boston by allowing this guy, Johnny Montrano, who worked with the north, to come and help him on an op in the South. But as we learn in this holotape, Johnny Montrano blew it because he was lazy. He just failed to get out of the car and warn Eddie Winter. Eddie ends with a not-so-subtle threat towards not only Johnny, but also his family. So we see what kind of man this Eddie Winter is. If we head to the Cambridge police station, we find another holotape from Captain Windmark. This is the man who was Nick Valentine's boss on the Boston police force. He was in charge of Operation Winter's End.
Hello, team. Captain Widmark here. Welcome to the task force. Operation Winter's End starts now, with you. Together, we will knock Eddie Winter off his throne and dump his sorry ass in a 2,000-volt easy chair. It should come as a surprise to no one that our operations in Boston have been, in a word, compromised. Winter has eyes everywhere, even the BPD. So, our brothers across the river in Cambridge have been kind enough to let us use the Cambridge Police Department as our base of operations. Let's get to work. Good hunting.
So the original Nick Valentine came with his family from Chicago, Illinois to Boston, Massachusetts to help this Captain Windmark with Operation Winter's End. Even though Eddie Winter operated in South Boston, Captain Windmark was so concerned about threats from inside his own police force that he operated out of Cambridge. Now, to solve this case, we are going to go to many police stations in Boston. At each of these police stations, we'll find a terminal like this one at the Cambridge police station, and the terminal will give us our next clue. It'll first tell us where in the police station to find the Eddie Winter holotape with the code on it, usually on a desk, in an evidence lockup, or in a locker, and then it'll tell us at what other police station in Boston we can find another holotape. In this example, we learned that the first holotape 0, was sent to Agent Mitchell at the Boston BADTFL, and that another one can be found at the Malden Police Department. Since it's a bit repetitive to show you each of these terminals, which pretty much say the exact same thing, I'm going to take you directly to the holotapes at each police station so that we can listen to Eddie Winter. So the first clue on this terminal was to go to the BADTFL HQ in North Cambridge. When we arrive, we find that raiders have moved in, led by the raider boss Sparta. Sparta was sent here by Tower Tom in the Beantown Brewery to look for food. This is when Tower Tom was having the difficulty with Red Tourette at the federal ration stockpile. I covered that drama in my video on Red Tourette. After clearing the place of raiders, we find a terminal that not only tells where to look for the next winter holotape logs, but it also has a winter informant log. And here we learn something absolutely tragic. The Bureau of Alcohol, Drugs, Tobacco, Firearms, and Lasers learned that Eddie Winter was trying to kill Jennifer Lands, Nick Valentine's fiancée, long before they actually succeeded. The agents who discovered this went to their superiors at the BADTFL to try and get Nick and Jenny placed into witness protection, but they were denied, and the excuse was that the higher-ups didn't want to compromise ongoing BADTFL investigations. They knew Eddie Winter was gonna kill Nick's fiancée, and they did nothing. To make matters worse, we find another damning holotape in the evidence lockup. This holotape is titled "We Are Done," and it's from Nick's captain, Captain Windmark.
Detective Valentine. Nick, listen, I'm sorry. You've got every right to be upset. But you need to believe me when I tell you I had no idea. Operation Winter's End was my baby. I believed in it. I still believe in it. They kept us all in the dark, me included. I got briefed this afternoon. They laid it all out. The whole thing. Winter's deal with the DA, his agreement to bring down the other families, his idea to record the holotapes and incriminate all known associates, and them needing a legitimate op and a real task force to make it all look like Winter was the focus. It was the plan all along, Nick. There's nothing we can do. Winter was a stoolie for the feds. He reported directly to the BADTFL, all on the books. For his cooperation, Winter will be granted total immunity. It's over. Effective immediately, Operation Winter's End is to cease all investigations and operations. The task force is hereby disbanded. We played our part, pal. Not the part we thought, but hey, it happens. Now we're just another box in the file room. Nick, listen to me. Everything that's happened with Winter, with Jenny, it's more than any one man should have to handle. need help. Boston PD has been working with the eggheads at CIT. Some new program they have to deal with trauma. Scanning brainwaves or some such. I'll get you the info. You're going. That's an order.
What a tragedy. We learned so much from this. First, Eddie Winter didn't make a mistake with these holotapes. He knew exactly what he was doing. It wasn't his arrogance and him thinking that the cops would never find him that caused him to no longer encrypt his messages. No, he was working with the BADTFL. He left the holotapes unencrypted because each holotape was fingering one of his own associates with a crime. This was part of his bargain. If he left this incriminating evidence, the BADTFL would not press any charges against him. But the Bureau didn't tell the police force. Instead, they allowed Captain Windmark and Nick Valentine to go ahead and do their Operation Winter's End out of the Cambridge police station because it would look better to Eddie Winter's enemies. People would think that Eddie was the only one under investigation without realizing that Eddie was turning them all in. And we learn why Nick went to CIT to begin with. He didn't go to have his personality permanently stored on some long-term storage device. He went to deal with the emotional problems he was suffering at work due to the death of his fiancée and his failure at Operation Winter's End. He was naturally devastated. Captain Windmark saw it in Nick and ordered him to seek help at the CIT. He only went because they were trying to help him with his trauma, but instead the CIT copied his entire personality without him knowing and stored it, whereupon hundreds of years later the CIT's descendants, the Institute, would put that personality in a synth body, and in so doing create the Nick Valentine we know and love. This means that the Nick Valentine, saved on a hard drive at CIT, had just lost his fiancée and was suffering from trauma. That's the Nick who they put into a synth. That Nick had just lost his fiancée, and he wakes up on a garbage pile hundreds of years later with no idea how he got there or what he was. How horrible is that? Poor Nick. This incident is mentioned by the journalist Mags Vecchio, who wrote at the Boston Bugle. If you go to the Boston Bugle building, you'll find a terminal which has this news story on it detailing the acquittal of Eddie Winter. Nick's captain, Captain Windmark, officially said to the press, quote, "After reviewing the evidence with our colleagues at the Bureau of Alcohol, Drugs, Tobacco, Firearms, and Lasers, it became clear that we were in fact wrong." Oh, I can just imagine him gritting his teeth while saying this. Eddie Winter has indeed had a colorful history, but it is not a criminal history. By pursuing our case against Mr. Winter, we would simply continue to waste taxpayer dollars and, even worse, condemn an innocent man. Of course, the press are absolutely incensed by this. They know Eddie Winter is not an innocent man, and they don't understand why they're letting him go. That's why Eddie Winter's scandal is front page news of the Boston Bugle the day the bombs drop. If you look at the front page of any Boston Bugle you find in Boston, you see Eddie Winter's face and the article about his case. This is the very newspaper lying on Nick Valentine's desk inside Valentine's detective agency where we find him. He sits at his desk and stares at this front page cover day after day. Imagine being ejected from the Institute, finding yourself in a synth body, discovering that you're actually dead. It's 200 years later, and Eddie Winter, the man who killed your fiancée, is still front page news all over the city. In this article, they even reference the murder of Jennifer Lands, Nick Valentine's fiancée. And at the end, they say that no one needs to worry because after all of this blew over, after the police acquitted him, Eddie Winter simply vanished, and no one knows where he went. Well, we know where he went. He went into his bunker under his Joe Spucky's submarine sandwich shop in Andrews Station. We've got to find a way in so that he can face justice. The holotape here at the BADTFL is found on top of a filing cabinet near the cells.
Message to Alexander Strelnikov. My esteemed Mr. Strelnikov, I know someone of your profession values discretion above all else. But I have to honestly say, screw that. I mean, come on. One bullet, halfway across town, and you blew Ron Treviot's head clean off. You, sir, are an artist. Are all the assassins from Russia as good as you?
Barely
I
see a
seriously doubt it.
thing.
But listen, your secret's safe with me. Eddie Winter, signing off.
Now that we know that Eddie Winter is a stoolie for the feds, we understand everything we hear in these holotapes from a completely different light. Alexander Strelnikov was a Russian assassin that Eddie Winter hired to get rid of some guy he didn't like, Ron Trevio. We don't get any more information about him, we don't know why. But Eddie isn't sending Alexander this message just because he's so impressed with Alexander's work. No, he's doing it on an unencrypted holotape to finger him, so that this man gets arrested. We have to bear that in mind while listening to all holotapes from here on out. The next one is at the police station near Malden Center. On a desk in the corner office near a terminal on the second floor, we find the next holotape.
Message to Robert Cooper. You did good, Bobby. The wife and girl won't be saying anything. No worries. Hell, once those fat life insurance checks start rolling in, Mrs. Montrano will wish her fat slob of a husband had eaten that bullet 5 years ago. As for what happens next, up to you. Beach, sub shop, car yard, doesn't matter where he ends up, I don't give a shit. I just want him in the ground. So, long as Johnny Sr. never finds out what happened to his little meatball, we're set. Eddie Winter, signing off.
So, Eddie Winter had Johnny Montrano assassinated. Remember, Johnny Montrano was the gangster who worked on the north end of Boston with the Italians. This is the guy who betrayed him during a gig and failed to tell him when the cops were coming. He got his vengeance not by killing the man's wife or child, but by hiring this Robert Cooper to assassinate him. Johnny's own wife knows what happened, but she's not going to say anything because she gets to cash his life insurance checks. How despicable. To find the next one, we go to the Coast Guard Pier. This pier is home to dozens of super mutants, and it can be quite a fight to clear them all, but we find the holotape on the second floor on top of an expert locked safe.
Message to Claire Pazinski. Time to start thinking about a vacation. How does 6 weeks in Ireland sound to you? Dublin, Galway Bay, Waterford. Maybe a week in that little bed and breakfast in Kilkenny. And don't worry, we don't have to take my cousin Stephen with us. Let him get out of the country on his own. I told him to threaten that cop, not blast him in the face with a shotgun. He can rot in that abandoned fishery down in Union Wharf for all I care. Love you.
So this is a message to his girlfriend/fiancée, Claire. He has this trip to Ireland as a pretext to finger his own cousin Stephen. He has all of the incriminating evidence in here. Stephen was the one who killed the cop, and you can find Stephen at the abandoned fishery down at Union Wharf. We find the next one at the Quincy police station. This is a very tricky one to get, especially if you haven't cleared Quincy yet. An assaultron likes to hang out in this police station, but to find the holotape, we actually go through the door in this police station to the Quincy police lockup. It's here in one of the lockers that we find the next holotape.
Message to Robert Cooper. Bobby, we discussed this. You hooking up
Not
with
so
your
long as you're
stepsister is your
carrying
own
it.
friggin' business. But you talk in your sleep. Look, maybe you babble about baseball or sing show tunes. Or could be you chat about those 3 bodies Colin O'Malley dumped in the sand trap of Arlington Greens. You want to take that chance? I know I don't. Sorry, Robert. The girl's gotta go. Eddie Winter, signing off.
Robert was the man he hired to kill Johnny Montrano. He's already fingered Robert in a previous holotape, but now he's sending this holotape to Robert to finger Colin O'Malley as a murderer responsible for dumping 3 bodies in the sand trap at Arlington Greens Golf Course. Telling him that he's worried he might talk about his crimes in his sleep was just a pretext. Next, we go to the South Boston Police Department. We find the next holotape on the second floor on top of a desk in the corner.
Message to Buster Conley. Nice piece you did on the monorail construction project. Heaven's Highway, Devil's Doing. Cute. But I think you give organized crime too much credit. The various Boston families coming together to fund a public works project? Please. Clearly you never sat down to dinner with these guys. They can barely agree on an appetizer. and ain't nobody jumping to pick up the check. The bosses had their hands in the honeypot, sure, but nowhere near the level you were suggesting. You did get one thing right, though. Safety Inspector Alice Lansky was killed. They'll never find her, because there's nothing left. After he bashed her brains in with one of those giant wrenches, Vinny the Cracker's Venucci dissolved her body in a barrel of hydrochloric acid. So write your follow-up. Then feel free to tell the cops the murder weapon is hanging on the wall in Venucci's garage on 4 Charter Street. Eddie Winter, signing off.
This one is pretty blatant, actually. So Buster Conley is a writer for the Boston Bugle. We don't find the monorail article that Eddie is referring to in this document, but we do see other things that he's written in the Boston Bugle building. In particular, he covered the massacre where U.S. soldiers fired upon starving Boston residents during the famine of the Great War. And he also writes about baseball. But apparently Buster Conley also covered Eddie Winter and wrote a piece talking about how the crime families of Boston were profiting on a government-funded monorail project. And here Eddie is saying that yes, that's true, but not quite to the extent that you implied in your article, because the crime families of Boston are not that organized. But he used the opportunity to finger Vinny the Cracker's Venucci by not only listing the victim of the person he killed, but describing the way that he got rid of the body and mentioning where he lives at Venucci's garage, the exact address of it on 4th Prince Street, and where you can find the murder weapon. Okay, that one was a bit blatant. The next one is really close to Diamond City in the Police Precinct 8. You find this one in a cell, sitting on a stool next to some chems.
Message to Rodrigo Palomar. Okay, my friend. I thought about it, and I've reached a decision on the Fallon's job. Your cut is exactly what you deserve. $0. Zilch. You heard me right. You get nothing. Yes, you cracked the safe, and yes, we got the diamonds. But you also tripped the alarm. Mackie got pinched, and that's entirely your fault. Now, when he gets out, Mackie's gonna want your head on a platter. I'm gonna give him your share instead. I see you're getting off easy. Eddie Winter, signing off.
So this was a gig that Eddie Winter did. This was one of the men he hired to get the job done. He successfully robbed a safe from the Fallon's department store, but not before this buffoon, Rodrigo Palomar, tripped an alarm which caused one of the other guys, Mackie, to get caught. You can see the scene of this crime in my video on the Fallon's department store. But for the next holotape, we need to go all the way to the Natick police station in Natick Banks. This police station is half falling into the ocean, but you can find the holotape in the partially sunken portion of the building on the 1st floor inside the closed locker.
Message to Claire Pazinski. Dinner tonight. Me, you, and Arthur Black. Reservations are for 7 at the Cornerstone Grill. Don't worry, I'll make sure Arthur's on his best behavior. No stabbing the waiter for a fucked up drink order, like what happened in Charlestown, even though the prick deserved it. Love you.
Jeez, Eddie sure does hang around some winners. So this is another message to his girlfriend Claire. He's going out to dinner with her, but also a guy named Arthur Black. Seems odd that he'd go out on an intimate dinner with his girlfriend and then bring along one of the crime goons he knows. But the point of this, of course, is that he wants to finger Arthur Black as the man who murdered a waiter serving drinks in a restaurant in Charlestown whose only crime was to mess up one of his customers' drink orders. Next, we go to the Nahant Sheriff's Department. There's actually a random encounter hotspot right here inside the police station. I often bump into Rust Devils whenever I come here, but the holotape is on the 2nd floor on top of a filing cabinet next to a 10mm pistol and a stash of caps.
Message to Sal Bosconi. You and I clearly need to talk. About Danvers, about the Montrano mess, about everything. I think we'd both agree that our attempts to improve North-South relations have been a complete failure. Look, I take full responsibility for the behavior of my guys. I expect you to do the same for that moron Montrano. But what happened in Danvers? I hardly know what to say. Your people turned that theater into a slaughterhouse. Those people are dead on your orders, not mine, and for no conceivable reason I can see. So let's meet. Just the two of us. Talk it all out. You name the time and place. Eddie Winter, signing off.
And again, we hear about Johnny Montrano. So this message was to the mafia boss of the North Italian Boston gangsters, Sal Barsconi. Eddie, in charge of the Southern Irish gangsters, was working with Sal to try to improve North-South relations. That's why they had Johnny working with Eddie to begin with. But we already know what happened to Johnny Montrano, and Eddie wants Sal to take personal responsibility for it. Apparently also, Sal and his gangsters are more bloodthirsty and reckless than Eddie Winter and his gangsters, slaughtering an entire theater filled with film patrons. Eddie Winter sets up the sting operation right here, saying that he's gonna meet with Sal, just the two of them, but of course we already know that the cops will be waiting for Sal Barsconi, thanks to Eddie's tip. And finally, we need to go to the East Boston police station, where we find the final holotape on the second floor in one of the desks.
Message to Charlotte Wen. My dear Miss Wen, I hope you're well. After our little joint venture this past May, you should be. If memory serves correctly, that pallet of puff out earned you a small fortune, and probably 8 years in a state correctional facility. So I got to thinking, why not do it again? We both love the same things, money and destroying people who get in our way. Together we'll outmaneuver them all. Boston will be ours for the taking. Let them play checkers. We'll play chess. Eddie Winter, signing off.
Eddie's crime dealings reach far and wide. We don't hear any more about Charlotte Wen or Wu Lee outside of this holotape. At last, after finding all 10 holotapes, we can give them to Nick.
Finally got them all. Here.
No fooling. Wow, that's some real solid detective work. They're older than dirt, but they've got Eddie's paw prints all over them. These are the real deal. And they've still got the code pieces in them. Let me run them through the old processor. Got it. 19537284006. That old thug's holed up in Andrews Station. Now, let's go bring down Eddie Winter.
Nick leaves your party and runs for Andrews Station. I was at Quincy when he left. I didn't want to run the whole way, so I fast traveled to Andrews Station and started clearing it of raiders. After a while, Nick showed up, and together you enter Andrews Station. Now, Nick wants to take point. He's all jazzed up, ready to kill Eddie Winter. Because of that, he just charges right into enemies. Good luck trying to get through this with stealth. He runs over landmines and trips all manner of traps. After clearing the tube tunnels, we can go through a broken wall to climb some steps through some ancient part of Boston towards Eddie Winter's bunker. We pass by what looks to be a ring for fights. I don't know if this is part of cut content or not, but it looks like the raiders here staged bets on all manner of fights. At last, Nick brings us to the door of Eddie Winter's bunker.
That filthy toad's right on the other side of that door. Why don't you do the honor?
Sure. 19537284006.
The fuck? Who the fuck are you?
Who the fuck am I? Who the fuck are you?
I'm Eddie Winter, and you're in my bunker.
Oh, come on, Eddie. It's me. Your old pal Molly McFuck yourself.
All this time, and the first person to walk through my door is a wise ass.
Hey, it's all right. I'm just passing through.
Passing through? A secure underground bunker?
I'm the last human you're ever gonna lay eyes on.
Huh. Oh boy, oh. If I had a sawbuck for every time somebody said that to me. But I ain't dead yet, am I? Just how the fuck did you get... No. No way. Not after all this time. Don't tell me you actually cracked my code. In the holotapes? Well, hey. It's only been, what, 200 years? Well, look. I'm not sure what you thought you'd find. Gold, jewels, the secrets of the universe. But you get me. One guy. A ghoul, I guess you'd call me. Just living, surviving, and what I got, you can't have. That code? It was a joke. I just wanted to prove how dumb those feds were. Turns out, pretty dumb. So take your asses someplace else.
I'm not going anywhere until I get what I came for.
Yeah? And what's that? And who are you, huh? You look kind of familiar. But what are you, some kind of robot? Is that what it's like out there now? A world of robot overlords? I knew it.
The name's Valentine. Nick Valentine. Remember me?
Valentine? The cop? Is that who you're supposed to be? Sorry, pal, but you ain't Nick Valentine. You're just some kind of, machine.
You killed my fiancée, Jennifer Lance. There's some crimes even you can't get away with, Winter.
Your fiancée? You mean Valentine's fiancée? Pretty girl. A shame what happened to her. But hey, you? Or, the real Valentine? He should have backed off when he had the chance. But what gives, Robot Man? Why do you even care? Some girl gets whacked 200 years ago, and you come into my home acting like a hot guy? Christ, look at you. You're not even alive.
Then I guess I'm in good company.
You ain't taking me down. Shit, nah.
Wow, Nick, man, hits the guy with his gun, fires twice, and Eddie is down for the count. He did that so fast I didn't even have time to raise my gun.
We're done here. There's one more thing I've got to do. I wouldn't mind the company if you wanted to tag along.
Nick heads out, but before we follow him, let's explore Eddie's bunker. We can loot Eddie's unique weapon, Eddie's Piece, a .44 Magnum revolver that does 50% more limb damage. The terminal in this room just unlocks a nearby safe, which is filled with all sorts of great loot, but it doesn't have any lore on it. However, on the dresser near Eddie's bed, we find a holotape to Claire.
Claire, it's me, Eddie. It's been too long, I know. But I'm okay. We're okay. I know it's weird, me disappearing just when the heat died down. But there's a reason. What we talked about? It's happening. Soon. Bombs, missiles, I don't know what. But the end is coming. I can't even tell you how much I paid my cloak and dagger friend for this info. So I guess me building that shelter was a smart idea after all, huh? But look, baby. There is one more thing. The reason I haven't been around for a while. You know those idiot brothers at Wicked Shipping? The ones smuggling the radioactive material? I put the screws to them. Got some of the stuff. I've been working with this doctor in East Boston. Guy's a fucking genius. Listen, I know it sounds crazy, but he had this theory. The right kind of radiation exposure at the right amounts, it can change human cells. Mutate them. Baby, I can live forever. Yeah, I know, it could kill me. I'm willing to chance it, but I can't risk losing you. So I'm the guinea pig. And I've been getting treatments. But don't worry, I'm fine. More than fine. I feel great. Amazing even. I think this crazy shit's really working. Eventually, this war will blow over. And when it does, I'm gonna walk out into Boston and pick up where I left off. I'm gonna own the future. I'm assuming you'll be dead by then, of course. But let's not dwell on the negative. So look, you come to the sub shop tomorrow night. You and I will go into the shelter together. Seal it up and wait for the big kaboom. Just, you might want to prepare yourself a little. Mentally and such, I look a little different now. But love is only skin deep, right?
Either Claire never showed up to the sub shop that night, or she did, and took one look at Eddie Winter with his new face, and walked away. We do not find her skeleton here, or any evidence that she had ever been here. To me, it sounds like Claire was only with Eddie Winter because he was a man of power, and it's hard to flaunt power from a bunker. Now, this holotape makes a lot of references to topics we've covered in the past. I did an entire video on the Wicked Shipping Company, owned by two brothers. The radioactive waste that he's talking about came from Mass Fusion. Mass Fusion hired the Wicked Shipping Company to dispose of their own nuclear waste. Eddie Winter stopped one of their delivery trucks and stole that nuclear waste, which is why we find a Wicked Shipping delivery truck on the road just outside Andrew Station. He then supplied the nuclear waste to the doctor in East Boston, who successfully turned Eddie Winter into the world's very first ghoul. Back to Nick, we can follow him up the stairs out the secret entrance to the Andrew Station hideout. This brings us to the Joe Spucky's restaurant. Nick walks outside and heads to the water.
This is it. In this spot, 200 years ago, one of Eddie's boys put a bullet in Jenny Land's back. Now Eddie's as dead as Jenny. And Nick. I'm at a loss. I just need some time to process all this. You mind if we get out of here?
If you look closely at the ground where Nick stood, we see 2 bullet impact holes in the cement. These must have been the shots that killed Jennifer Lands. A while later, Nick will come to you and express his gratitude that you helped him sort this out.
You know, I've been thinking about how things went down with Winter. I never properly thanked you for that.
Taking down Winter was a big deal. Are you doing all right?
I don't know. It's a lot to take in.
Now all we have to worry about is Zombie Eddie coming to seek revenge.
I'm pretty sure that was Zombie Eddie we took care of back there.
You made me an accomplice to murder. I'm not exactly thrilled about that.
That was a messy business, I know, but this meant a lot to me. Winter was it. The only reminder left of the original Nick Valentine. The last proof, outside of some long-lost Institute archive, I was ever just a mechanical copy of some cop from a bygone era. I'm not sure how to feel.
What were you expecting?
I just thought this would fix things, but it's not that easy.
Does it really matter? Winter, Jenny, Valentine, they're gone. We're here. We get to make the world what we want.
You're right. It just took me until now to realize it.
Don't you see, Nick? You're finally free. There is no other Nick anymore. Just you.
I wish it was that easy, but it's not.
This was selfish, Nick. You had us kill a man just so you could find some closure?
No, killing Winter was never gonna bring me closure. Because I was Nick Valentine. I had his memories, his fears, all that poor bastard's hope. I remember getting the call to head to some lab in Cambridge to get that neurotrans whatever. And the next thing I know, I'm in a trash heap. My family, my home, my entire life gone. Then I discover all those things that they weren't even mine. Everything I ever was belonged to Nick. I'd hoped with Winter gone, the last hint of that old world snuffed out, I could finally be free. But being out here with you, what I finally realized after all this time was that taking down Winter, it wasn't about Nick or Jenny or even you or me. It was about justice, about doing what's right. And that act of goodness, that's ours. All the good we've done, that's ours, and ours alone. And even if that's the only thing in this world that I can ever claim as mine, not Nick's, not the Institute's, but mine, then I can die happy.
Hey, let's keep this professional, all right? Wouldn't want you to spring a leak.
Yeah, fine. Have it your way. But let me just say this. Thank you.
He awards you his companion perk, Close to Metal, which gives you one more guess when trying to solve puzzles at terminals, and terminals will reset themselves 50% faster if you get locked out. And that is the full story of Eddie Winter, the nemesis of the original Nick Valentine, an honest, hard-working cop who moved from Illinois to Boston to help the Boston police finally put this criminal mastermind behind bars, whose fiancée was brutally gunned down in the street, and whose entire personality was stolen by the Institute and put in an experimental synth. I'm really eager to hear your thoughts on this quest, ladies and gentlemen, because it's a morality question, and it's clearly something that Nick struggled with. Did he murder Eddie Winter? Was this just about revenge? Or was it about justice? In the pre-war world, where there was a system of justice, the system failed. Eddie Winter was never brought to justice. But in this post-war new world where there is no institutionalized system of justice, the only justice that exists is vigilante justice. Is vigilante justice justified? Can we say that what Nick did was not murder, but in fact the enactment of the justice that Eddie Winter has evaded for so long? That is my stance. That is how I see it. I understand the argument that what Nick did was murder, but as far as I see it, Nick was just an agent of justice that needed to be meted out. Yes, there was likely a revenge element in there, but it needed to be done for the sake of justice, and there was no one else who could do it. But that is just one man's opinion, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. I read all of your comments, and I use your comments as inspiration for my future videos. I publish a new video 6 days a week on a wide range of Fallout lore topics, so if you want to make sure that you don't miss what I publish next, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell notification button. I have a t-shirt shop where I sell a bunch of Oxhorn and Fallout themed t-shirts. You can find a link to my shop in the description below. And if you like what I do and you want to support me in a more personal way, consider becoming one of my patrons on Patreon. Patreon subscribers gain access to a private channel on my Discord server, as well as a bunch of other cool Oxhorn perks. But more importantly, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just so glad you're here watching this video with me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you Tuesday morning, bright and early, with a brand new video.
Well, come talk to me once you've tracked them down.